My name is Jennifer Martinez, and I'm 37 years old. I own a small cafe in Portland, Oregon, where the rain taps against the windows most days and the smell of fresh coffee fills the air. For nearly 8 years, I worked myself to exhaustion, pouring every spare cent into my younger brother's dream of becoming a lawyer. His rent in expensive cities, his utility bills, his law school tuition, I covered it all without question. Family comes first, right? That's what I believed. But last Tuesday evening, as I was closing up my cafe, my phone buzzed with an email notification. What I read on that screen would shatter everything I thought I knew about the brother I'd sacrificed so much for. The message wasn't meant for me. It was supposed to go to his fiancée. In those cold, calculated words, he called me trashy, said I would humiliate him in front of her wealthy family, and explicitly told her to uninvite me from their engagement party. Trashy. That single word felt like a physical blow. Each letter represented a betrayal of every double shift I'd worked, every vacation I'd canceled, every dream I'd postponed to fund his privileged life. I sat there in my empty cafe, the evening light fading outside, my hands trembling as I read and reread those sentences. How could the little boy I used to read bedtime stories to, the teenager I'd helped through his first heartbreak, the young man I believed in so completely, how could he think so little of me? I could have called him immediately. I could have screamed, cried, demanded an explanation. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in that silence, thinking about all those checks I'd written, all those wire transfers, all those times I'd chosen his needs over my own. And then I started doing something I should have done years ago. I started adding up the numbers and I started making plans. What happened next changed everything, not just his life, but mine too. And when the truth finally came out, it wasn't just his bank account that suffered. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Have you ever felt taken for granted by the people who should love you most? Drop your story in the comments and hit that subscribe button because what unfolds in this story gets intense. Trust me, you'll want to see how it all ends. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, my family lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in the Hawthorne district. The neighborhood was filled with young families, and our little home, with its creaky floors and small backyard, felt like the center of the universe when we were kids. My younger brother, Marcus Martinez, and I were incredibly close in those early years. We were only 3 years apart, and we did everything together. We'd ride our bikes to the local park, build elaborate Lego cities on the living room floor, and spend summer evenings catching fireflies in mason jars. I wanted to own my own restaurant someday, creating spaces where people could gather and feel at home. Marcus, even at age 9, talked about becoming a lawyer. He'd seen a courtroom drama on TV and became obsessed with the idea of arguing cases and winning justice. Those childhood dreams felt pure and possible back then. My parents, Robert Martinez and Linda Martinez, were hardworking people who did their best with limited resources. Dad worked as an HVAC technician, often coming home with grease-stained hands and tired eyes. Mom was a receptionist at a dental office, her days filled with scheduling appointments and soothing anxious patients. They weren't wealthy, but they loved us fiercely. However, even in those early years, I noticed a pattern. Marcus's straight-A report cards would be displayed on the refrigerator like trophies. His science projects and debate team victories were causes for celebration. Phone calls to relatives, proud Facebook posts, the works. My own achievements, a drawing that won a school contest, a cake I'd baked for Dad's birthday that everyone raved about, received warm smiles and, "That's nice, honey," but never quite the same fanfare. I didn't resent it then. Marcus was brilliant, genuinely gifted. His mind worked differently, processing information and making connections that seemed almost magical. If anything, I was proud of him too. I thought we were a team, each playing our part in the family story. After graduating from Franklin High School, I made a decision that surprised everyone. I skipped college entirely. While my classmates were filling out applications and stressing over SAT scores, I was researching small business loans and restaurant equipment. I wanted to create something tangible, something mine. The early days of my cafe were absolutely brutal. I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m. to start baking, spend all day serving customers, and then stay late into the evening handling paperwork and prep work for the next day. My hands were constantly burned from the ovens, my feet perpetually aching, my social life non-existent. There were weeks when I barely made enough to cover rent and supplies, when I'd eat leftover pastries for dinner because I couldn't afford to buy groceries and pay my employees. But every time a customer smiled after tasting my cinnamon rolls, every time someone said my cafe felt like a second home, every time a regular asked if I'd save them their usual spot, it all felt worth it. I was building something real. Marcus, meanwhile, followed the path my parents had always dreamed of. He excelled at Portland State University, then got accepted to a prestigious law school on the East Coast, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I'll never forget the day that acceptance letter arrived. Mom cried tears of joy. Dad called everyone he knew. Marcus was going to be a lawyer, maybe even a judge someday. He was going to make something of himself. The implication, never spoken directly, but always hovering in the air, was that I already had made something of myself. And it wasn't enough. The financial support started subtly, almost innocently. During Marcus's sophomore year at Portland State, his partial scholarship didn't quite cover all his expenses. He called me one evening, his voice stressed. "Jen, I hate to ask, but I'm short $800 for housing this semester." I didn't want to worry Mom and Dad. $800. For most people, that might not sound like much, but for me, struggling to keep my cafe afloat, it was significant. Still, he was my little brother. I sent the money the next day. Then came the law school years, and everything escalated. Georgetown is expensive. Not just the tuition, which is astronomical, but the cost of living in D.C. Marcus needed an apartment near campus because the commute from cheaper areas would be too time-consuming with his study schedule. He needed a reliable laptop for research. He needed professional clothes for internships and networking events. He needed textbooks that cost hundreds of dollars each semester, and somehow, I became the person who paid for all of it. It started with his rent, $2,200 a month for a small one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Then utilities, another $150, $200 monthly. His phone bill, his internet, his groceries. Over 3 years, those expenses became routine. Every month, I'd wire money from my business account to his personal account, watching my own savings dwindle while his life in D.C. expanded. I didn't keep a detailed ledger in those early days. It was just what you did for family, right? But looking back, I can estimate I was sending him at least $3,000 a month, sometimes more. Over 3 years of law school, that adds up to over $100,000. $100,000 from my cafe's profits. My personal savings, my future, transferred to fund his. My parents couldn't contribute much. Dad's work was steady but not lucrative, and Mom's dental office salary barely covered their own bills. Their mortgage, their car payments, their health insurance, it all added up. So when Marcus needed money, they'd call me. "Your brother's under so much pressure," Mom would say, her voice carrying that familiar tone of worry and pride mixed together. "He needs to focus on his studies, not stress about bills. Can you help him out, Jen? Just this once?" Except it was never just once. They'd call after every wire transfer, gushing about Marcus's latest achievements. He'd made law review. He'd gotten an internship with a prestigious firm. He'd impressed a professor who predicted great things for his career. "He's going to change the world," Dad would tell me, his voice thick with emotion. "And Jen, you're making it possible. You're the one holding him up." But their praise always had a sharp edge underneath. "Marcus is doing something important," Mom said to me once as we sat in my cafe during her lunch break. She stirred her latte absently, not quite meeting my eyes. "Something that will really make a difference. Not like—" She gestured vaguely around my cafe, leaving the sentence unfinished. "Not like running a cafe. Not like what you do." I laughed it off at the time, made some joke about how everyone needs coffee and pastries. But her words stung, settling into that deep place where childhood wounds live. They'd compare us constantly, though they probably didn't realize how obvious it was. Marcus's LSATs versus my lack of a college degree. His potential six-figure salary versus my small business income. His future versus my present. Every family gathering became an informal Marcus update session. My achievements: a great review in the local food magazine, a successful catering gig, expanding my menu, would get a polite, "That's wonderful, dear," before the conversation inevitably swung back to my brother. But I kept working, kept sending money, kept believing this was temporary. I'd stay late at the cafe, perfecting new recipes and balancing the books, then pull out my phone to transfer another payment for Marcus's electric bill. My dreams of expanding, maybe opening a second location or offering weekend brunch or completely renovating my kitchen, got pushed further and further into the future, because family comes first. That's what I told myself. Marcus's calls became transactional. Early on, he'd at least catch up with me first, ask about the cafe, tell me funny stories about his professors, reminisce about childhood memories. But by his second year of law school, those warmth had vanished. Our conversations followed a script. "Hey Jen, can you send $1,500? I need to renew my bar prep course registration." "Hey Jen, rent's due and I'm short this month. Can you cover it?" "Hey Jen, I need a new suit for interviews. Can you send $600? I'd do it every time, telling myself he was under enormous pressure. Law school is notoriously demanding. The stress, the competition, the constant feeling of being judged. I understood why he might not have time for lengthy phone calls. He was focused on his future, on becoming someone important. But sometimes, late at night after closing the cafe, I'd sit alone with my laptop and feel a hollow ache in my chest. My business account balance was shrinking. My personal savings were nearly gone. Meanwhile, Marcus was living his dream, and I was... What, the ATM sister? The one whose only value was financial? I pushed those thoughts away. He'd graduate soon, I told myself. He'd get a high-paying job at a law firm, and we'd be even. Maybe he'd even pay me back, though I never asked him to. That wasn't the point. The point was family, was supporting each other, was being the big sister he needed. Looking back now, I can see the cracks forming in our relationship. The way his gratitude became perfunctory, the way my parents' attention remained fixed on him while my own struggles went largely unnoticed. But at the time, I was too deep in it to see clearly. I was exhausted, financially strained, and increasingly lonely. But I told myself it was worth it. I told myself that being a good sister meant sacrifice. I told myself that one day, he'd appreciate everything I'd done. I was wrong. Midway through Marcus's third year of law school, something shifted. His rare phone calls became even rarer, and when he did contact me, there was a new coldness in his voice, an impatience, almost an annoyance at having to speak with me at all. "I need $2,000 for a legal symposium," he'd say without preamble. "No, how are you? No, how's the cafe?" Just demands, delivered as if I owed him. But it was his social media that really opened my eyes. I'd followed Marcus on Instagram since he first got an account. Back when his posts were goofy selfies and photos of his textbooks with captions about how much he hated studying. But during law school, his feed transformed into something else entirely. Every week brought new posts that made my stomach twist with confusion and anger. Photos of expensive dinners at DC's trendiest restaurants, places I'd read about in food magazines, where a single meal cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. Weekend trips to New York City, to Miami, to the Hamptons, designer clothes in every picture, tailored suits from Brooks Brothers, leather shoes from Allen Edmonds, a watch that I knew cost several $1,000s because I'd researched it after seeing it gleaming on his wrist in a photo. One post showed Marcus at a rooftop bar in Georgetown, the DC skyline glittering behind him, surrounded by beautiful people holding craft cocktails that probably cost $18 each. The caption, "Living my best life. Law school life. Blessed." I sat in my cafe's back office, my flour-dusted apron still on after a long shift, scrolling through these images on my phone. I was exhausted, my feet aching, my bank account showing another month where I'd barely broken even after sending Marcus his usual $3,000. And there he was, Blessed and living his best life on my dime. How was he affording this? The question kept me up at night. I was barely covering his rent and utilities and basic expenses. Where was this extra money coming from? Was he taking out credit cards? Had my parents somehow found money to send him? Or, and this thought made my chest tight with anger, was my money not going to rent and groceries at all, but directly to fund this lifestyle? Then I learned about Samantha Hartley. She appeared in Marcus's posts around the start of his 3rd year. A stunning blonde woman with the kind of effortless elegance that screamed old money. Her Instagram profile was public, and I fell down the rabbit hole one sleepless night. Samantha came from serious wealth. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across Virginia and Maryland, the kind that sell Porsches and Mercedes to D.C. politicians and lobbyists. Her mother sat on the boards of multiple charities. Their family home in McLean, Virginia, looked like something from a mansion tour. Samantha's social media was a curated display of privilege, charity galas, ski trips to Aspen, beach vacations in the Bahamas, designer handbags as casual accessories. And suddenly, there was Marcus, right beside her in these photos, matching her aesthetic perfectly. He looked like he belonged in her world, like he'd always been part of it, a ski trip to Colorado. I'd sent him money for textbooks that same week, a wine tasting event at a Virginia vineyard. I'd covered his phone bill so he could focus on studying. A photo of them dressed in formal attire at what looked like a law school ball, Samantha's dress surely costing more than I made in a month. I'd sent him emergency money for a laptop repair. The pattern was clear. Marcus was reinventing himself to fit into Samantha's world, and my money was funding that transformation. I tried talking to my parents about it. They stopped by the cafe one afternoon, a rare visit that I initially hoped meant they wanted to check on me. Instead, they wanted to show me Marcus's latest Instagram post. "Look how successful he looks," Mom said, showing me a photo of Marcus in a sharp suit at some networking event. "He's really making connections, building his future." I pointed out the expensive watch, the designer clothes, the general extravagance. "Where's he getting money for all this?" "I'm barely keeping my business afloat sending him what I do," Dad waved dismissively. "Lawyers need to look professional, Jen. It's called networking." "He's investing in his career." "On my money," I said quietly. Mom's expression hardened. "Don't be petty. He'll pay you back once he starts working at a firm. This is temporary." "It's been 3 years. Law school is 3 years," Dad said, as if explaining something to a child. "You know that. He's almost done. Just support him a little longer." They didn't see, or didn't want to see, what I saw. That Marcus wasn't just networking. He was pretending to be someone he wasn't. He was pretending to come from money, to be Samantha's financial equal, to belong in rooms and restaurants and vacation spots that his real family could never afford. And I was the dirty secret funding it all. Marcus's requests became bolder, more entitled. $3,000 for a professional development conference that looked suspiciously like a weekend party in Miami based on the Instagram photos that appeared afterward. $1,000 for law review expenses that coincided with a new leather briefcase showing up in his posts. $2,000 for bar exam prep materials when the exam was still months away. Each time, I'd stare at my cafe's bank balance, watching the numbers shrink, and feel the weight of realization settling over me. I was being used. One evening, Marcus called, which had become so rare that I immediately knew he wanted something significant. "I need $5,000, he said without preamble. "There's a legal symposium in San Francisco, and it's crucial for my career. All the top firms send recruiters. I need to be there and I need to look the part." $5,000? I repeated, my voice hollow. "Yeah, for flights, hotel, the conference fee, and appropriate attire. This is important, Jen. This could determine my entire career. Could determine his career. As if the over $100,000 I'd already given him wasn't enough. As if my cafe's struggling finances were less important than him impressing recruiters at a conference. "I need to think about it," I said. "Think about it?" His voice rose with irritation. Jen, I need to register this week. What's there to think about? You always help me. Why is this different? Why is this different? Because I'm drowning, I wanted to scream. Because I can't remember the last time I bought myself new clothes or went on a vacation or felt like I mattered. Because you're living a lie on my money and don't even have the decency to pretend to be grateful. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I told him I'd send the money and hung up feeling sick. I sent it the next day, watching $5,000 drain from my account. Money I could have used to replace my cafe's failing refrigerator, or give my employees raises, or take a single day off. For the next few weeks, I obsessively checked Marcus's Instagram, each new post a fresh wound. There he was in San Francisco, looking polished and confident. There he was with Samantha at a dinner that definitely wasn't part of any legal symposium. There he was at Fisherman's Wharf, clearly extending his trip into a vacation. My money. My sacrifice. His pleasure. I wanted to confront him, to demand explanations, to ask when exactly I'd become nothing more than a bank account to him. But every time I picked up my phone to call, I stopped. He was still my brother. He was still the little boy I'd protected and believed in. Maybe this was just a phase. Maybe once he graduated and started working, he'd remember who'd supported him. Maybe he'd apologize, and we'd laugh about this someday. Maybe I was still lying to myself because the truth was too painful to face. The email arrived on a Tuesday evening at exactly 7:43 p.m. I remember because I'd just finished cleaning the espresso machine, a task I normally enjoyed for its meditative rhythm, when my phone chimed. I was exhausted. It had been a typical, brutal day, a 4:30 a.m. start to prep pastries, a rush of morning customers, a catering delivery for a corporate client, more afternoon customers, and then the end-of-day cleaning. My feet hurt, my back ached, and I had flour in my hair. The email was from Marcus. The subject line, Thanksgiving plans. I almost smiled. It had been weeks since we'd really communicated, and I thought maybe, finally, he was reaching out to connect, to make plans to see each other for the holiday. Despite everything, I missed him. I missed my little brother. I opened the email, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was meant for Samantha. My brain took a moment to process what I was reading, seeing my own name in the third person. Sam, we need to talk about Thanksgiving. I know you want me to meet your whole family, but I need you to do something for me. Don't invite Jennifer. Tell her we're doing something small, just immediate family. Here's the thing, she's kind of trashy, honestly. Very small business owner trying too hard energy. I know she's my sister, but she'd completely humiliate me in front of your family. Your parents, your brother, they're all so polished and successful. Jennifer would show up in something cheap from Target, probably talk about coffee beans or some other boring cafe stuff and just, she doesn't fit the image. I need your family to think I come from money, or at least from people with sophistication. Jennifer is neither of those things, so just tell her plans changed. She'll understand. She always does whatever I ask anyway. I read it once, then again, then a third time, certain I must be misunderstanding. Trashy, humiliate me, doesn't fit the image. She always does whatever I ask anyway. Each phrase was a knife, but that last one, that casual, dismissive acknowledgement, that he knew exactly how much I'd sacrificed and how little he valued it. That was the one that finally broke something inside me. My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. The cafe suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. I couldn't breathe properly. My vision went blurry with tears I refused to let fall. 7 years. 7 years of working myself to exhaustion. 7 years of every extra dollar going to him. 7 years of believing I was helping my brother achieve his dreams, being a good sister, doing what family does, and this entire time, he'd thought I was trash, an embarrassment, someone to hide. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made. The vacation to Hawaii I'd canceled because Marcus needed emergency rent money. The refrigerator in my cafe that I'd been nursing along for 2 years past its expected lifespan because I couldn't afford to replace it. The romantic relationship that had fizzled out because I was always working, always stressed about money, never able to relax or enjoy myself. All of it, every bit of it, for someone who was ashamed of me. I sat on the floor of my cafe's back office, my back against the wall, staring at that email until the words blurred together. The overhead light hummed. Outside, Portland traffic sounds filtered in. The espresso machine dripped in the main room. Normal sounds in a moment that felt anything but normal. I needed to talk to someone or I'd lose my mind. I called Alexis Thompson, my best friend since high school. She answered on the second ring, immediately picking up on my distress. "Jen? What's wrong? You sound awful." I couldn't speak at first. When I finally found words, they came out in a choked whisper. "Marcus sent me an email, by accident. It was meant for Samantha." "Okay," Alexis said carefully. "What did it say?" I read her the entire thing, my voice cracking on words like trashy and humiliate. The silence on her end lasted several long seconds. Then, "Jen. Oh my God, Jen. I'm so sorry." "He doesn't want me at Thanksgiving," I said, stating the obvious because my brain couldn't process anything deeper yet. "He's ashamed of me." "After everything you've done for him?" Alexis's voice rose with anger. "After all the money you've sent him? How much has it been, Jen? How much have you given him?" "I don't know exactly. Over 100,000 probably." I heard her sharp intake of breath. $100,000, and he thinks you're trash? Hearing her say it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. The absolute absurdity of it. The cruel injustice. "You need to stop," Alexis said firmly. "No more money, not one more cent. He doesn't deserve your support." "He's still my brother," I whispered, though the words felt hollow. "He was your brother. Right now he's just a guy using you. There's a difference, Jen." After we hung up, I sat in that back office for another hour, unable to move. Alexis was right. I knew she was right, but knowing something intellectually and feeling ready to act on it are very different things. Finally, I pulled out my phone again and opened Instagram. I told myself not to look, but I couldn't help it. I needed to see what he'd been doing while thinking of me as an embarrassment. His latest post was from 4 hours ago. A photo taken in what was clearly Samantha's family home. I could tell from previous posts she'd made. Marcus and Samantha were dressed in expensive casual wear, standing in front of a fireplace that probably cost more than my entire cafe's worth. They looked like they belonged in a Ralph Lauren ad. The caption, "Early Thanksgiving celebration with the Hartleys. Grateful for family and for finding my people. Blessed Thanksgiving family, finding my people, as if I wasn't his people, as if the woman who'd raised him alongside our parents, who'd funded his entire law school experience, who'd sacrificed her own dreams for his, as if I wasn't his family." I looked at the comments, dozens of people congratulating him, calling them a beautiful couple, asking when the wedding would be. Samantha's mother had even commented, "So happy to welcome you into our family, Marcus. Welcome into their family." The family he'd chosen. The family he wanted to belong to. I was the family he wanted to forget. Something hardened in my chest then. Something cold and final. The love I had for my little brother. That unconditional, protective love that had driven every sacrifice. It cracked like ice over a frozen lake. I didn't call him. I didn't send an angry text. I just sat there, in my flour-dusted apron, in my small cafe that he was ashamed of, and I started making a plan. If Marcus wanted to pretend I didn't exist, fine. But he'd have to do it without my money. That night, I barely slept. I kept the lights off in my small studio apartment, lying in bed and watching the numbers in my head. Rent payments, utility bills, tuition costs, restaurant dinners, designer clothes, Instagram-perfect vacations. All my money, all my years of sacrifice. for someone who called me trashy. At 6 a.m., I was back in the cafe, starting my morning routine on autopilot. Preheat the ovens, mix the first batch of muffins, start the espresso machine, unlock the front door, smile at the early morning regulars. But inside, I was calculating. During my lunch break, which usually meant scarfing down a day-old croissant while standing at the counter, I made a phone call instead. Davidson Financial Services. This is Michael Chen speaking. Michael had been my financial advisor for 3 years, helping me navigate the complexities of small business accounting and tax preparation. He knew my finances better than anyone. Michael, it's Jennifer Martinez. I need to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. Today, if you can fit me in. Something in my voice must have conveyed urgency because he didn't ask questions. I have a slot at 4 p.m. Does that work? I'll be there. At 3:45 p.m., I hung up my apron, left my assistant manager Kelly in charge, and drove to Michael's office. The November air was crisp and cold, threatening rain. Portland was gray in that way it gets in late autumn, the sky pressing down like a weight. Michael's office was modest but professional. He gestured for me to sit in one of the chairs across from his desk, his expression concerned. Jennifer, you sounded stressed on the phone. What's going on? I took a breath. I need you to go through my accounts. All of them. Personal and business. I need to see exactly how much money I've been transferring to my brother over the past 3 years. Every payment, every wire transfer, everything. His eyebrows rose. Okay, is there a particular reason? I'm stopping all payments to him, immediately, and I need to understand the full damage so I can figure out how to recover. If Michael was surprised, he didn't show it. He just nodded and turned to his computer. Give me a few minutes to pull everything up. Those few minutes felt eternal. I watched him work, his fingers flying across the keyboard, his eyes scanning multiple screens. He made occasional notes on a legal pad. His expression grew more and more serious. Finally, he turned back to me. Jennifer, over the past 3 years, you've transferred $127,500 to your brother's account. The number hit like a physical blow, even though I'd known it would be bad. $127,500. $127,500. That breaks down to roughly $3,500 per month on average, though it varied. Some months were as low as $2,000, others as high as $6,000, depending on his requests. Michael pulled up a graph showing the transfers over time. Your business account is currently at its lowest point in 2 years. Your personal savings are almost depleted. You have about $3,200 left. Meanwhile, you've had to delay equipment upgrades. You haven't given yourself a raise in 3 years. And you've been working unsustainable hours to make up for the financial drain. He leaned back in his chair, his expression gentle but firm. Jennifer, I'm going to be blunt because that's what you're paying me for. This arrangement has been financially devastating for you. If you continue at this rate, you'll have to close your cafe within 2 years. You're not sustainable. Close my cafe. The business I'd built from nothing. The dream I'd poured my heart into. The thought made me feel physically ill. But if you stop these payments immediately, Michael continued, and redirect that money into your business and your own savings, you can recover. You can finally replace that failing refrigerator. You can hire the additional staff you need so you're not working 80-hour weeks. You can build up an emergency fund. You can actually thrive instead of just surviving. What should I do first? My voice was steady now, clear. Cut off all recurring payments. Then I recommend using this month's freed-up funds to address your most urgent equipment needs. After that, start building your savings back up. 3 to 6 months of operating expenses should be your goal. I left Michael's office with a folder full of printed statements and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The numbers were devastating, yes, but they also validated what I'd been feeling. I couldn't keep doing this. I was drowning and Marcus didn't care. He never had. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop. My hands were steady as I logged into my bank account and navigated to the automatic payments section. There they were, scheduled like clockwork. $2,200 on the first of every month for Marcus's rent. $150 for his utilities, $100 for his phone bill, all set to recur indefinitely. I deleted them. One by one, each click was a small act of rebellion. Then I opened my email and found the contact information for Georgetown Law School's financial office. I'd been paying Marcus's tuition directly to them, $25,000 per semester. Like clockwork, I composed a brief professional email, to whom it may concern. This is to inform you that I will no longer be making tuition payments for Marcus A. Martinez, student ID R8754327. Any future tuition obligations are his responsibility alone. Please remove me from his account as an authorized payer. Sincerely, Jennifer Martinez. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The next part was harder. I needed to invest in my cafe to finally address the equipment failures I'd been ignoring. I made a list: new commercial refrigerator, 4,500 espresso machine servicing, 800 new mixer to replace the 15-year-old one that made concerning grinding noises, but 200 fresh paint and minor renovations to the seating area. 2,000 total, $8,500. Almost exactly what I'd normally send Marcus over the next 3 months. I started making calls. Within 2 hours, I'd ordered the new refrigerator with next week delivery, scheduled the espresso machine servicing, and put in an order for the mixer. The paint and renovations would wait another month, but the essential equipment would finally be handled. For the first time in years, I was investing in myself, in my business, in my future, but I knew the hardest part was still coming. Marcus would notice eventually that the money had stopped flowing. And when he did, there would be consequences. I was ready for them. The call came 3 days later, on Friday evening. I'd just finished the dinner rush, a successful evening with several large orders for my new specialty sandwiches. My assistant manager Kelly was cleaning up while I handled the register. My phone buzzed with Marcus's name. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Jen, what the hell? His voice was sharp, angry. No greeting, no pretense of pleasantries. Hello to you too, Marcus. My rent payment didn't go through, and I got an email from Georgetown saying you're no longer covering my tuition. What's going on? I kept my voice calm. I'm no longer sending you money, any of it. You'll need to figure out your own finances from now on, Helance. Then, are you serious right now? Jen, I'm in the middle of my final year. I graduate in May. You can't just cut me off. I can, actually. And I have. Why? His voice rose. What's your problem? Did something happen with the cafe? Are you broke or something? The casual dismissal in his tone, the assumption that only my own financial failure could justify stopping my support, made my jaw clench. No, Marcus. I'm not broke, but I was heading that way because I've spent over $127,000 on you in the past 3 years. So? I'll pay you back when I start at a firm. You know that. Will you? I asked. Because you've never once mentioned paying me back. You've never asked how I'm doing financially. You've never even thanked me in the last year. Oh my God, here we go. You want a trophy? Fine, thank you, Jen. Happy now? Can you send this month's rent? The audacity took my breath away. No, what do you mean no? Jen, I'm not kidding around. My rent is due on the 1st. That's 5 days away. Then I suggest you figure it out. Get a job. Take out a loan. Ask your girlfriend's rich parents. I don't care anymore. Ask Samantha's parents. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Why would I do that? Because you want to impress them so badly. Because you're so busy pretending to be someone you're not that you've forgotten where you actually came from. What are you talking about? I got your email, Marcus. Another silence, this one longer. When he spoke again, his voice was wary. What email? The one you meant to send to Samantha. About Thanksgiving. About how I'm trashy and would embarrass you in front of her family. How I don't fit the image you're trying to project. I heard him inhale sharply. Jen, listen. No, you listen. For 3 years, I've worked myself to exhaustion to fund your life. I've skipped vacations, delayed equipment repairs, depleted my savings, all so you could go to law school. And the whole time, you thought I was an embarrassment. You were ashamed of me. I didn't mean it like that, he said. but his voice lacked conviction. I was stressed. Sam's family is they have expectations. I just wanted to make a good impression. By pretending I don't exist. By not having to explain why my sister owns a cafe instead of having a real career. The words hung in the air between us. A real career. There it was, the truth he'd been hiding behind politeness and empty thank yous for years. A real career, I repeated slowly. The cafe that funded your entire law school education isn't a real career? You know what I mean. It's different. Sam's brother is a surgeon. Her cousin is a federal judge. Her friends' families are senators and CEOs. And my sister makes coffee. I don't just make coffee, Marcus. I run a business. I employ 6 people. I'm a pillar of my community. But you wouldn't know that because you've never once visited my cafe. Not once in 3 years. I've been busy. You've been busy spending my money on vacations and designer clothes and pretending to be rich. I've seen your Instagram, Marcus. The ski trips, the restaurants, the watch that costs more than I make in a month. Where did you think that money was coming from? That's different. That's networking. That's building my professional image, on my dime. You offered to help. His voice rose defensively. Nobody forced you. You wanted to help your brother, and now you're throwing it in my face? The anger that had been simmering in my chest finally boiled over. I helped you because I loved you, because I believed in you, because I thought we were family. But you know what? Family doesn't call each other trashy. Family doesn't hide each other away like dirty secrets. Family doesn't take $127,000 and never even say thank you. $127,000? He sounded genuinely shocked. It wasn't that much. It was exactly that much. I had my financial advisor pull the records. Every rent payment, every utility bill, every emergency request for concerts and trips and networking events. It all added up. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear background noise on his end. Voices, laughter. He was somewhere social, probably at a bar with friends, taking a break from his fun to deal with the annoying sister who'd cut off his funding. Look, he finally said, his tone shifting to something that might have been conciliatory if it wasn't so condescending. I'm sorry you saw that email. I was venting. You know how it is when you're trying to impress someone. I didn't really mean you're trashy. Yes, you did. Fine. Whatever. The point is, I'm about to graduate. I have firm interviews coming up. This is literally the worst possible time for you to have a meltdown and cut me off. A meltdown? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think this is a meltdown? Marcus, this is me finally waking up. This is me realizing that you've been using me for years, and I was too blind or too stupid to see it. Oh, please. Don't be so dramatic. You're my sister. Helping me succeed helps the whole family. When I'm making 6 figures at a top firm, you'll benefit too. How? How will I benefit when you're ashamed to admit I exist? He didn't have an answer for that. I'm done, I said quietly. No more money. Figure out your own life. Jen, don't do this. Please. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry about the email. I'll make it up to you. Just don't cut me off right now. I'll lose my apartment. I might have to drop out, then drop out, or don't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. What am I supposed to tell Samantha? She thinks I come from money. She thinks I can afford this lifestyle, and there it was, his real concern. Not our relationship, not the years I'd sacrificed, not even his education. Just his image, his lie, his desperate need to be someone he wasn't. Tell her the truth, I said. Tell her you have a sister who owns a cafe in Portland, who worked her ass off to put you through law school, who you called trashy behind her back. Tell her you're broke without me. Tell her who you really are. I can't do that. Then I guess you'll figure something else out. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding. But underneath the adrenaline was something else. Relief. Bone-deep, exhausting relief. Kelly approached cautiously. You okay, boss? I realized I was crying. Not sad tears, but angry, frustrated, cleansing tears. Yeah, I said, wiping my face. Yeah, I think I actually am. My phone buzzed with texts from Marcus. This is crazy. You're being unreasonable. What am I supposed to do? Jen, please, I need you to reconsider. I'll pay you back. I promise. Don't do this to me. I turned off my phone. That night, I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The years of sacrificing my own dreams for someone who didn't value them. The constant feeling of being less than in my own family. The weight of expectations I'd never asked for but somehow carried anyway. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't have to check my bank account and worry about whether I had enough to send Marcus his monthly payment. I didn't have to feel that familiar knot of anxiety about unexpected requests for money. I was free. I knew my parents would find out quickly. Marcus would call them, playing the victim, painting me as unreasonable and cruel. I was right. Sunday morning, 2 days after I'd cut Marcus off, my phone rang. Mom's name on the screen. I'd turned my phone back on that morning, steeling myself for this conversation. Hi, Mom, Jennifer Rose Martinez. Her use of my full name told me everything I needed to know about this call. Marcus called us crying yesterday. He says you've abandoned him. I haven't abandoned him. I've stopped sending him money. Same thing. Her voice was sharp. He's in his final year of law school. He graduates in 6 months. You can't just pull the rug out from under him now. I can, actually. And I did. Why? What happened? Did he say something to upset you? I almost laughed at the minimization. Did he say something? As if this was about one comment, one moment, rather than years of being used and disrespected. He called me trashy, Mom. He told his girlfriend I would embarrass him. He asked her to uninvite me from Thanksgiving because I don't fit the image he wants to project. Silence. Then, well, Samantha's family is very wealthy. You know that. Marcus is just trying to make a good impression for his career. You're taking it too personally. Too personally? Mom, I've given him over $127,000 in the last 3 years. I've worked myself to exhaustion. I've put my own life on hold. And he thinks I'm trash. Don't exaggerate with that number. It's not an exaggeration. I had my financial advisor pull the records. $127,500 exactly. Another silence. I could hear her processing this, trying to reconcile the number with her view of the situation. Well, she finally said, that was your choice. Nobody forced you to give him that money. The words hit like a slap. Your choice. As if they hadn't called me constantly, pressuring me to help him. As if they hadn't praised me for being such a good sister while simultaneously making clear that what I did with my life was less important than Marcus's path. You're right, I said quietly. It was my choice, and now I'm choosing to stop. Jennifer, be reasonable. He just needs 6 more months of support. Then he'll graduate, get a job, and he can pay you back if that's so important to you. It's not about the money, Mom. Then what is it about? Respect, love, being valued as a human being and not just a bank account. Dad's voice came on the line. They'd had me on speaker the whole time. Jen, sweetheart, I think you're being too sensitive. Marcus didn't mean anything by that email. You know how young people talk these days. Everything is exaggerated. He meant it, Dad. And honestly, I think you both know he meant it. That's not fair, Mom said. We've always been proud of both of you. Have you? When's the last time you visited my cafe? When's the last time you asked me how my business was doing? When's the last time you bragged about me the way you brag about Marcus? Neither of them answered. That's what I thought, I said. You've spent years making it clear that what Marcus does matters more than what I do. That his dreams are important and mine are just quaint, I guess. A cute little cafe? You're being dramatic, Dad said. We're proud of you both. But Marcus is going to be a lawyer. That's a big achievement. And I own a successful business that employs people and serves my community. That's also an achievement. But you've never seen it that way. We're getting off track, Mom interjected. The point is, Marcus needs help right now. He's your brother. Family helps family. Family respects family, too. And Marcus doesn't respect me. So you're just going to let him lose his apartment? Maybe have to drop out of law school. Throw away 3 years of education? Mom, those are not my problems to solve. Marcus is 28 years old. He needs to figure out his own life. 28 is still young. she protested. He's just starting out. I was 24 when I opened my cafe. Nobody helped me. I figured it out on my own. That's different, Dad said. How? How is it different? Neither of them could articulate it, but I understood. It was different because Marcus was the golden child, the one they'd pinned all their hopes on, the one who was supposed to make them proud in ways that apparently I never could. I'm not changing my mind, I said. Marcus needs to learn to stand on his own feet. You're being selfish, Mom said, her voice cold. I raised you better than this. Selfish. The word stung, but I'd expected it. In their worldview, my refusing to continue sacrificing myself was selfish. My choosing my own financial stability over Marcus's lifestyle was selfish. My demanding basic respect was selfish. Maybe I am selfish, I said. But I've been selfless for 3 years, and it got me nowhere. So I guess it's time to try something different. If you do this, Dad said slowly, if you abandon your brother like this, there will be consequences. We can't support this decision. It was a threat, thinly veiled. Choose Marcus or lose us. Then I guess we all make our choices, I said. Goodbye. I hung up before they could respond. The tears came then, hot and angry and sad all at once. I'd known this conversation would be painful, but the reality of it, the complete lack of understanding from my own parents, their immediate defense of Marcus despite his behavior, it hurt more than I'd anticipated. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Thanks a lot. Now Mom and Dad are furious with me too. Happy now? I didn't respond. More texts came throughout the day. From Marcus, from Mom, from Dad. Each one trying a different tactic. Mom, please reconsider. Marcus is devastated. Dad, at least help him through this semester. We'll all sit down and talk after graduation. Marcus. I said I was sorry. What more do you want? Marcus again. Fine, be that way. Don't expect me to help you when you need it. Mom. You're tearing this family apart. I turned off notifications and spent the rest of Sunday at my cafe, doing inventory and prep work for the week ahead. The physical work was grounding, familiar. Flour and sugar and butter didn't judge me. Ovens heated reliably. Recipes worked when you followed them, unlike family relationships, apparently. Thanksgiving arrived with typical Pacific Northwest weather, cold rain and gray skies. In previous years, I would have driven the 3 hours to our parents' house in Eugene, bringing pies I'd made at the cafe and preparing myself for a day of hearing about Marcus's achievements. This year, I stayed in Portland. I opened the cafe on Thanksgiving morning. We did good business with people picking up last-minute pies and breakfast pastries. Around 2 p.m., I closed up and went home to my small apartment. I'd picked up a small turkey breast from the grocery store and some basic sides. Nothing fancy. I set my tiny dining table for one and turned on a football game for background noise. My phone had been quiet all day. No calls from my parents inviting me to reconsider. No text from Marcus. The silence was its own message. I'd made my choice and they'd made theirs. At 6 p.m., as I was eating my solitary meal, my phone finally rang. It was Alexis. Please tell me you're not spending Thanksgiving alone, she said without preamble. I'm fine, I assured her. I've got turkey, I've got wine, I've got football. I'm good. Liar, I can hear it in your voice. Get over here now. Alexis, I don't want to crash your family dinner. You're not crashing. My brother brought his new boyfriend, my sister brought her 3 kids, my mom made enough food for an army, and we'd love to have you. Please come. Don't spend tonight alone. Something in her voice, the genuine warmth, the insistence, broke through my resistance. Okay, I said. Give me 20 minutes. Alexis and her wife hosted Thanksgiving at their house in the Selwood neighborhood, a cozy craftsman-style home always filled with laughter and warmth. When I arrived, slightly underdressed in jeans and a sweater, Alexis pulled me into a hug. Thank God you came, she whispered. I've been worried about you. Inside, chaos reigned in the best possible way. Kids ran around, adults talked over each other, someone was arguing good-naturedly about football, and the kitchen smelled incredible. Alexis's mom, Patricia, immediately pulled me into her orbit. Jennifer! I heard about your brother. What an idiot. Come eat. You're too thin. There was no pity in her voice, no awkward attempts to fix the situation, just acceptance and food and inclusion. We ate at a table extended with folding chairs and extra leaves, crammed with too many people and too much food. Alexis's nephew told elaborate stories about his school play. Her brother and his boyfriend debated the best pie, pumpkin versus apple. Someone spilled wine. Someone else made a toast, and through it all, I felt something I hadn't felt in my parents' house in years. Welcomed. After dinner, as I helped clear plates, Alexis found me in the kitchen. You okay? She asked quietly. I nodded. Yeah, thank you for this. For inviting me? Always, she said. That's what family does. Real family, real family. The phrase stuck with me. I'd spent so many years thinking family meant blood, meant obligation, meant sacrificing yourself for people just because you shared DNA. But looking around Alexis's house, at her chosen family, her wife, her friends who'd become like siblings, I realized family could be something else entirely. Family could be people who valued you, who saw you, who didn't ask you to be someone you weren't. As I drove home that night, full of good food and surrounded by the warmth of real connection, I didn't feel lonely anymore. I felt liberated. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I pulled over to check it. It was a photo. Marcus and Samantha at what looked like an elaborate Thanksgiving dinner. Crystal chandeliers, formal place settings, everyone dressed like they were attending a wedding. Marcus wore a suit. Samantha's family surrounded them, all polished and perfect. No message accompanied the photo. Just the image itself. A clear statement. Look what you're missing. Look where I belong now. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it and blocked the number. He could have his elaborate dinners and his pretend life. I'd rather have authenticity. December came with its own challenges. The holiday season is usually busy for cafes, but this year I was able to actually enjoy it because I wasn't constantly stressed about sending money to Marcus. I hired a part-time employee to help with the increased customer traffic. Her name was Diana Reyes, a recent college graduate looking for work while she applied to graduate programs. She was efficient, friendly, and grateful for the job, everything Marcus had stopped being. The new refrigerator arrived and was installed. The difference was immediate and dramatic. No more running back and forth with ice to keep milk cold. No more losing produce to inconsistent temperatures. It was a small thing, but it felt revolutionary. I gave all my employees Christmas bonuses, modest but more than I'd been able to afford in years. Kelly, who'd been with me since the beginning, actually teared up. "Boss, you didn't have to do this," she said. "You've stuck with me through some tough times," I told her. "You deserve it." That's what Marcus had never understood. The people who help you deserve appreciation, not just expectation of more help. The first week of December, I got an email from Georgetown Law School's financial office. "Dear Ms. Martinez, this is to confirm your removal as an authorized payer for student Marcus A. Martinez, ID number 8754322. The student has been notified of outstanding tuition balance of $12,500 for the spring semester. Please contact our office if you have any questions. $12,500. That's what Marcus owed for his final semester. I felt a twist of guilt. Old habits are hard to break, but I didn't reach out. I didn't offer to pay half or work out a payment plan, or any of the things old Jennifer would have done. New Jennifer forwarded the email to a folder and moved on with her day. The cafe did record business that month. I introduced a holiday menu, peppermint mochas, gingerbread lattes, cranberry scones, and customers loved it. On the busiest days, we had lines out the door. For the first time in 3 years, I was able to put money into savings. Not much, a few $100s here and there, but it was something. It was forward momentum instead of constant treading water. I didn't hear from my parents at all. No Christmas card, no phone call. The silence was pointed, deliberate. They'd made their position clear. By refusing to continue funding Marcus, I'd betrayed the family. Christmas morning, I worked a half day at the cafe, then spent the afternoon with Alexis and her family again. We exchanged small gifts, watched movies, ate too much. It wasn't the Christmas I'd grown up with, but it was good. It was real. On December 28th, my cousin Rachel stopped by the cafe. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. She lived in Seattle and worked as a graphic designer. She ordered a latte and a scone, then settled into one of the corner tables, clearly wanting to talk. "I saw Marcus's Instagram," she said without preamble. "The yacht? The designer clothes? The trips? Yeah," I said, not sure where she was going with this. "Jen, I did some math. I know you were helping him with school. Was it a lot?" I hesitated, then figured there was no point in hiding it. "Over $127,000 in 3 years, Rachel's eyes widened. Jesus, and he was posting about vacations? Apparently, my money funded more than just tuition and rent. She was quiet for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "There's something you should see. Marcus posted this 2 days ago, then deleted it. But I screenshotted it first." She showed me an Instagram story. Marcus, standing in front of what looked like a luxury car dealership, next to a brand new BMW. The caption, "Early graduation present to myself. Dream car secured. Blessed new car," my stomach dropped. "When was this?" "December 26th, 2 days ago. While I was being told he couldn't afford his tuition. While my parents were calling me selfish for cutting him off. While he was supposedly struggling without my support, he'd bought a BMW. How much does a car like that cost?" I asked, though I didn't really want to know. "New? Probably $50,000 minimum. Even used, it's at least $35,000. I felt dizzy. He told my parents he couldn't afford rent. That he might have to drop out. "Jen," Rachel said gently, "I don't think he was ever using your money for school. I think he was using it to fund a lifestyle. And now that you've cut him off, he's having to make choices. The car or the tuition? The image or the education? He chose the car, apparently." After Rachel left, I sat in my empty cafe and let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal. It wasn't just that Marcus had used me. I'd begun to accept that reality. It was that he'd lied so completely, so thoroughly, that even now he was prioritizing material possessions over his own education. Everything I'd sacrificed, every hour of sleep I'd lost, every dream I'd deferred, all of it so he could buy designer clothes and luxury cars and maintain a facade. I wasn't sad anymore. I was furious. New Year's Day, Marcus showed up at my cafe unannounced. I was doing inventory in the back when Kelly poked her head in. "Boss, your brother's here. He's asking to talk to you." My first instinct was to refuse, to have Kelly tell him I was busy. But I'd been avoiding this confrontation long enough. "Send him back," I said. Marcus appeared in the doorway of my stockroom, looking haggard. He'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in a stressed, not eating properly way. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His expensive jacket looked wrinkled. "Hi," he said. "What do you want, Marcus? Can we talk, please?" I gestured to the small desk in the corner. "Talk." He sat down heavily. "I'm in trouble, Jen. Real trouble. Georgetown is threatening to not let me graduate if I don't pay my spring tuition. I've been trying to figure it out on my own like you wanted, but I can't. I need help." "What about Samantha? What about her rich family?" He looked away. "We broke up. Despite everything, I felt a small pang of sympathy." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said bitterly. "She dumped me when she found out I wasn't actually from money. Turns out she'd Googled our family, found out Dad's an HVAC guy and Mom works at a dentist's office. She asked me about it and I tried to explain, but..." He shrugged. "She said I'd misrepresented myself, that our whole relationship was based on a lie." "It was," I said quietly. "Yeah, well, so that's over. And I can't afford my apartment anymore. I'm moving to a cheaper place next week. I had to sell the BMW you bought instead of paying your tuition." His eyes widened. "How did you know about that?" "Rachel saw your Instagram post before you deleted it. A brand new BMW, Marcus. While you were telling everyone you were broke." He had the decency to look ashamed. "That was stupid. I know, I thought..." I don't know what I thought. I was trying to keep up appearances and it all just fell apart. So now you want me to bail you out. Again. Just the tuition. Jen. It's $2,500. If I don't pay it by January 15th, I can't graduate. 3 years of law school all for nothing. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This was my little brother. The kid I'd read stories to. The teenager I'd helped through breakups and bad grades. The young man I'd believed in completely. But he was also the person who'd called me trashy, who'd stolen my money to fund a lie, who'd only come back when he needed something. No, I said. Jen, please, no, I'm not giving you any more money. It's just one more payment. Just to get me across the finish line. Then I'll get a job and pay you back, I swear. You said that before. Multiple times. And then you bought a BMW. I made a mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes, Marcus. And I'm done paying for them. He stood up, his hands clenched into fists. So that's it? You're just going to let me fail? Let 3 years of work go to waste? I'm not letting you do anything. You're doing it to yourself. You had $50,000 for a car but not $2,500 for tuition? Those are choices, Marcus. Your choices. I needed that car for interviews. For my career! No, you needed that car for your ego. There's a difference. His face flushed with anger. You know what? Fine, I don't need you. I never needed you. I'll figure it out on my own. Good, I said. You should have been doing that all along. You're a terrible sister, he spat. And you're a terrible brother. So I guess we're even. He stormed toward the door, then turned back. When I make it big, and I will make it big, don't come crawling back expecting me to help you. Don't expect me to show up to your little cafe or pretend like we're family. You made your choice. I did, I agreed. And I'd make it again. He left, slamming the door hard enough that customers in the front looked up, startled. Kelly appeared. You okay? Yeah, I said and realized it was true. Yeah, I really am. That night, I called my financial advisor, Michael, and asked about investment options. For the first time in my adult life, I had the bandwidth to think about my future beyond just surviving the next month. I want to expand, I told him. Maybe open a second location in a year or two. Or add a full kitchen and start doing catering. Something. I want to grow. With your current financial trajectory, Michael said, pulling up my accounts, that's absolutely feasible. You're saving consistently now. Your business is profitable. You could realistically start working toward expansion by next fall. Next fall. Less than a year away. My dream, actually within reach, because I'd stopped funding someone else's. January turned into February, then March. Portland's famous rain gave way to early cherry blossoms. The cafe continued to thrive. I heard through the family grapevine, specifically Rachel, who kept me updated, that Marcus had taken out student loans to cover his final tuition payment. He graduated in May on schedule, but without the fanfare my parents had always imagined. No one from the family attended his graduation. Mom and Dad couldn't afford the trip, and I wasn't invited. He took a job at a small law firm in Baltimore, not one of the prestigious positions he'd always talked about, but a real job nonetheless, making about $65,000 a year. Decent money, but nowhere near the 6 figures he'd promised he'd earn immediately. After rent, student loan payments, and basic expenses in an expensive city, he was apparently living paycheck to paycheck. According to Rachel, who heard it from an aunt who heard it from Mom, Marcus had called our parents asking for money. They'd had to say no. They were stretched thin themselves after years of their own sacrifices for him. I felt no satisfaction in his struggles. Just a distant kind of sadness for what could have been if he'd been honest. If he'd been grateful, if he'd treated me like a sister instead of an ATM. In April, I signed a lease on a second location, a smaller cafe in the trendy Alberta Arts District. It would take a few months to renovate and outfit, but by fall, I'd have 2 thriving businesses. 2 sources of income, 2 markers of success. Kelly would manage the original location. Diana, who'd proven herself over the winter, would help me open and run the new place. I was building something real, something lasting, something I could be proud of. On Mother's Day, I sent my mom flowers. Not because she deserved them, we hadn't spoken in 6 months, but because I wanted to be the bigger person. The card said simply, "Thinking of you. Love, Jennifer." She didn't call to thank me, but she did send a text. Flowers received. Thank you. 3 words. After years of being the dutiful daughter, the reliable one, the one who sacrificed everything, 3 words was all I got. It hurt less than I expected. Maybe I was finally healing. In June, the new cafe's renovations began. I spent my mornings at the original location and my afternoons at the construction site, watching my vision come to life. Custom tile, a beautiful espresso bar, large windows letting in natural light. It would be perfect. One afternoon in late June, Rachel called. "Have you seen Marcus's Facebook post? I blocked him on all social media months ago. He got married." I almost dropped my phone. "What?" "He married someone named Brittany. I guess they met at his law firm. The post is from last week. Small ceremony, just a few friends. He didn't tell the family until after. Married. My little brother got married. And I found out through a cousin, weeks later." "Are you okay?" Rachel asked gently. Was I? I searched my feelings, expecting hurt or anger. Instead, I just felt distant, like hearing about someone I used to know. "Yeah," I said. "I am. I hope he's happy." And I meant it. Not for his sake, necessarily, but because I genuinely didn't care anymore. He'd become a stranger who shared my DNA, nothing more. My parents didn't call to tell me about the marriage either. The silence from them had become permanent, apparently. They'd chosen Marcus, and I'd chosen myself. And everyone was living with their decisions. October brought the kind of crisp, clear days that make you remember why people love the Pacific Northwest despite the rain. The leaves turned gold and red, and both of my cafes were busy with customers seeking warm drinks and cozy atmospheres. I was preparing for my busiest season, the holidays, and for the first time, I felt truly confident in my business. Both locations were profitable. I had a staff of 11 people across both cafes. I'd even started offering benefits, health insurance for full-time employees, which I'd never been able to afford before. One morning in early October, a woman walked into my original cafe and asked for me specifically. "I'm Jennifer," I said. "I'm Amanda Lawrence from the Willamette Week," she said. "We're doing a feature on small business success stories in Portland, especially women entrepreneurs who've built thriving businesses from scratch. Someone recommended your cafe. Would you be interested in being interviewed?" A feature in Willamette Week, the paper my parents read every Thursday. The publication Marcus had always dismissed as local fluff. "I'd be honored," I said. The interview happened the following week. Amanda asked thoughtful questions about my journey, starting the cafe at 24, the challenges of the early years, how I'd managed to expand. I talked about my business philosophy, about creating community spaces, about the importance of treating employees well. "Was there ever a time you almost gave up?" Amanda asked. I thought about those years of barely scraping by, of watching my savings disappear, of working 80-hour weeks and feeling like I was drowning. But I didn't mention Marcus. That story wasn't for public consumption. "There were difficult years," I said carefully. "Times when I had to make hard choices about where to invest my resources. But I learned that sometimes you have to prioritize your own dreams, even when people close to you don't understand or support them." The article ran in late October, with photos of both cafes and a 2-page spread about my journey. The headline read, "From one oven to 2 locations, How Jennifer Martinez Built Portland's Favorite Neighborhood Cafe." My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from friends, customers, and business acquaintances. The article brought a flood of new customers to both locations. Local news stations reached out for follow-up interviews. A business podcast asked me to be a guest. For the first time in my life, I was being recognized for my own achievements, not as someone's sister, not as a supporting character in someone else's story, but as myself. 3 days after the article published, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize but somehow knew immediately. "Saw your article. Congratulations. Marcus." I stared at it for a long moment. There was so much I could say. So many things I wanted to ask. But in the end, I just replied, "Thank you." He didn't respond, and I didn't expect him to. That brief exchange was closure enough. 2 weeks later, my mom called. It was the first time I'd heard her voice in almost a year. "Hi, sweetheart." The casual endearment, after months of silence, felt jarring. "Hi, Mom. I saw your article in the Willamette Week. It was really something. I showed it to all my friends at work." "Thank you." An awkward pause. Then, "Your cafes look beautiful. I didn't realize you'd opened a second location. In April. It's been doing really well." "That's wonderful." Another pause. "Jennifer, I think maybe we should talk. Maybe we could get coffee sometime." "At your cafe?" I could hear what she wasn't saying. I was wrong. "I should have supported you." "I'm sorry." But she couldn't quite say those words, and I found I didn't need her to. "I'd like that," I said, because despite everything, she was still my mother. "How about next Tuesday? 10 a.m. at my Alberta location?" "That works. I'll be there." She showed up on time, looking older than I remembered, more gray in her hair, deeper lines around her eyes. We ordered coffee, she insisted on paying, and settled into a corner table. For a few minutes, we made small talk about the weather, her work, the cafe's decor. Then she set down her cup and looked at me directly. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I shouldn't have taken Marcus's side the way I did. I shouldn't have called you selfish. You were right. We did put too much pressure on you to support him, and we didn't appreciate what you were sacrificing." It was the apology I'd wanted for a year, but hearing it now, I realized it didn't change as much as I'd thought it would. "Thank you," I said. "That means something. How are you doing? Really?" "I'm good, Mom. Really good. Better than I've been in years," she nodded slowly. "I can see that. The cafes are beautiful. You've built something really special." "I have. And I couldn't have done it if I'd kept pouring money into Marcus." She flinched slightly but didn't argue. "He's struggling, you know. The job in Baltimore isn't what he hoped. His marriage is already strained. Apparently Brittany didn't realize how much debt he had from law school." I felt a twinge of sympathy, but not responsibility. "I'm sorry he's having a hard time. But those are his problems to solve, not mine." "I know." She stirred her coffee absently. I think your father and I put too much pressure on him, too. We built him up so much, made him think he had to be this huge success. And when reality didn't match that, he didn't know how to handle it. It was the most insightful thing I'd heard my mother say about Marcus in years. Maybe, I agreed, but he also made his own choices. The lying, the using people, the prioritizing image over substance. Those were his decisions. "You're right." She looked at me with something that might have been respect. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for, Jennifer. Walking away from him, building your business, standing on your own. That took real courage." We talked for another hour, carefully navigating around the worst of the past year but slowly rebuilding something. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before. That was gone, broken by too many betrayals and misplaced priorities. But it was something. A beginning, maybe. As she left, she hugged me. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I should have said that more often. "Thanks, Mom." I watched her walk to her car, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and rebuilding didn't mean pretending the past hadn't happened. But it meant moving forward, and that was enough. When Thanksgiving rolled around again, 1 full year since Marcus's email had upended my life, I had choices. Mom had tentatively invited me to Eugene for a family Thanksgiving. She'd mentioned that Marcus and Brittany would be there too, driving up from Baltimore. It would mean a lot to have the family together, she'd said hopefully. Alexis had invited me to her house again, promising another chaotic, wonderful celebration. And I'd received an invitation from a community organization I'd been working with. They were hosting a Thanksgiving dinner for people without family nearby, and they needed volunteers. I thought about it for a few days, weighing my options. A year ago, I'd spent Thanksgiving healing from betrayal, learning to stand on my own. This year, I had the luxury of choosing how I wanted to spend the day. In the end, I decided on a combination. I'd volunteer at the community dinner from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., then join Alexis's family for evening festivities. As for my parents' invitation, I sent a polite text declining. Thank you for the invitation. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I have other commitments this year, but maybe we can get together in December. Mom's response, we understand. Enjoy your day, sweetheart. No guilt trip. No pressure. Progress. Thanksgiving morning. I arrived at the community center downtown, where volunteers were already setting up long tables and preparing food for about 200 expected guests. I worked alongside other volunteers, some from churches, some from local businesses, some just individuals wanting to help. We served turkey and mashed potatoes, green beans and cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie and coffee. The guests were a mix of homeless individuals, elderly people who lived alone, families struggling financially, and others who simply had nowhere else to go. One older man, probably in his 70s, sat alone at a table picking at his food. I brought him a fresh cup of coffee. How's everything? I asked. Good. Thank you, miss. He had a weathered face and kind eyes. You run one of them cafes, don't you? I seen you in the newspaper. I do, I confirmed, surprised he recognized me. That's real good. Building something, making your own way. That's what matters. He nodded approvingly. I had a restaurant once long time ago, before things went sideways, but I remember how good it felt, creating something from nothing. We talked for a few minutes about the restaurant business, about his memories of running his place, about the satisfaction of feeding people. When I moved on to serve other guests, I felt grateful for the reminder. What I'd built mattered. Not because it was prestigious or impressive by anyone else's standards, but because it was mine, and it served a real purpose. That evening at Alexis's house, surrounded by laughter and warmth and chosen family, I felt something I'd been working toward for a year, peace. Not the absence of pain or regret, but the presence of acceptance and forward momentum. During dinner, Alexis's mom, Patricia, raised her glass. I'd like to make a toast to Jennifer, who opened her second cafe this year and showed all of us what resilience looks like. We're so proud of you, honey. Everyone raised their glasses and echoed the sentiment. I felt tears prick my eyes, happy tears this time. Thank you, I said. And thank you all for being the kind of family that shows up, that supports, that celebrates each other's successes. It means more than you know. Later, as I drove home through Portland's quiet streets, I checked my phone. There was a text from Mom with a photo attached. Our family at their Thanksgiving table. Dad, Mom, Marcus, and Brittany, a pretty brunette with a nervous smile. The message read, thinking of you today. Love, Mom. I looked at the photo for a long moment. Marcus looked tired, older. There was no expensive watch, no designer clothes. Just a regular guy in a normal button-down shirt, sitting at a modest table in my parents' modest house. This was reality, the reality he'd been running from, the reality I'd been funding him to escape. And now we were both living in our actual lives instead of pretending to be something we weren't. I texted back, beautiful photo. Hope you all had a lovely day. And I meant it. I could wish them well without needing to be part of it. I could love my family without sacrificing myself for them. I could move forward without carrying the weight of their expectations. The winter holidays brought the expected rush of business. Both cafes were packed with customers and my staff handled it beautifully. We'd developed systems, rhythms, a real team culture. On Christmas Eve, after closing the Alberta location, I gathered my employees for a small party, pizza, drinks, and bonuses. I'd been able to give everyone a week's pay as a Christmas bonus, plus paid time off for the actual holiday. Diana, who'd been promoted to assistant manager, stood up and clinked her glass. I want to say something. A year ago, I was fresh out of college with a degree I wasn't sure what to do with, applying to jobs and getting rejection after rejection. Jennifer hired me part-time at minimum wage for what I thought would be a temporary gig, but she invested in me, trained me, promoted me, And now I have a career I love and a boss who actually values her employees. So thank you, Jennifer. You've changed my life." The others echoed the sentiment, and I had to blink back tears. This right here, was what success actually looked like. Not Instagram posts about luxury lifestyles. Not impressing people who didn't really know you, but creating something real that improved people's lives, including your own. In January, I sat down with my financial advisor, Michael, for our annual review. "Jennifer, your business has grown by 40% this year," he said, showing me charts and graphs. "Both locations are profitable. You've built up a healthy emergency fund, 6 months of operating expenses. You're on track to pay off your business loan 2 years early. By any measure, this has been an extraordinary year. What about expansion?" I asked. "Could I open a third location?" Michael pulled up projections. "Based on current growth rates, yes. You could comfortably finance a third location by next summer. But I'd recommend taking this year to solidify your current operations. Make sure both locations are running smoothly with minimal oversight from you. Then expand from a position of strength." It made sense. I'd spent so many years rushing to send Marcus money, rushing to keep up with demands, rushing to survive. Slowing down, doing things right, building sustainably, that was the new approach. In February, I got an unexpected email. The subject line, "From Marcus." My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won. "Jennifer, I'm writing this email after a lot of therapy and a lot of hard conversations with Brittany. We're in marriage counseling. I've been working with my therapist on taking accountability for my actions, and part of that means making amends where possible. I want to apologize, really apologize, for how I treated you. Not just the email you saw, but everything. Using you financially for years while never appreciating what you were sacrificing. Calling you trashy and being ashamed of you when you were literally the only reason I could afford law school. Building a fake life on your money and then blaming you when I couldn't maintain it. I was so caught up in trying to be someone I wasn't, trying to impress people who didn't actually care about me, that I lost sight of what actually mattered. You were a better sister to me than I ever was a brother to you, and I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I can't pay you back right now. I'm drowning in student loan debt and barely making ends meet. But I wanted you to know that I understand now how wrong I was, how much I hurt you, how much I took you for granted. I don't expect you to forgive me or want a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that I've learned from this, even though it took losing everything to figure it out. I saw your article in Willamette Week. Your cafes look amazing. You've built something real and meaningful, and you did it while I was just playing pretend. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. I hope you're happy. I hope you're thriving. You deserve it, Marcus." I read it 3 times, feeling the complicated swirl of emotions. Anger at how long it took him to realize. Sadness for the relationship we'd lost. A small, cautious relief that maybe he was actually growing up. I thought about responding immediately, then decided to wait. This wasn't something to dash off a quick reply to. This required thought. A week later, I wrote back, "Marcus, thank you for your email. I appreciate the apology, and I believe you mean it. I've done a lot of growing this year, too. I've learned that I can't sacrifice myself for other people's dreams, no matter how much I love them. I've learned that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. And I've learned that real success isn't about impressing others. It's about building a life you're actually proud of. I forgive you, not because you've earned it necessarily, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Forgiveness doesn't mean we go back to how things were. I can't be your safety net anymore, but it does mean I can wish you well and hope you figure out your life. I hope marriage counseling helps. I hope you and Brittany work things out. I hope you find a career path that fulfills you, even if it's not what you originally envisioned. And I hope you learn to be honest, with yourself and others, about who you are and where you come from. Take care of yourself." Jennifer, after I hit send, I felt lighter. Not because I expected a relationship with Marcus to magically heal, but because I'd said what I needed to say and could truly let go. March brought cherry blossoms and the 1-year anniversary of signing the lease on my second cafe. To celebrate, I threw an anniversary party at the Alberta location. Live music, special drinks, pastries, and a raffle with prizes donated by other local businesses. The turnout was incredible. Regular customers, local business owners, neighbors, friends. Alexis came with her whole family. My mom came too, driving up from Eugene by herself. "This is wonderful, honey," Mom said, looking around at the crowded, happy space. "You've really created something special." "Thank you. I meant it. Your father wanted to come, but he's working. But he wanted me to tell you he's proud of you." It was progress. Slow, imperfect progress, but progress nonetheless. That night, after everyone had left and I was cleaning up with Diana and Kelly, I stood in the middle of my cafe and just absorbed the moment. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries. The marks on the floor from dancing feet. The evidence of community, of connection, of something mattering. "You okay, boss?" Kelly asked. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "I'm really okay." In April, something unexpected happened. I was featured on a national podcast about women entrepreneurs. The host had heard about my story through the Willamette Week article and wanted to interview me about building a business from scratch. We talked about the challenges of small business ownership, about the importance of community, about work-life balance. Near the end, she asked, "What's the best piece of advice you'd give someone starting their own business?" I thought about everything I'd learned, not just about business, but about life. "Know your worth," I said. "Not what others think you should be worth, but what you actually value in yourself. Because if you don't know your own worth, you'll let people undervalue you. You'll sacrifice your dreams for someone else's. You'll work yourself to exhaustion and wonder why you're not fulfilled. Know your worth, set your boundaries, and build something that reflects your actual values, not someone else's expectations." The episode went live in May and reached thousands of listeners. I got emails from women all over the country sharing their own stories of setting boundaries with family, of choosing their own paths, of building businesses while everyone told them they should do something else. One email particularly stuck with me. It was from a woman in Texas named Sarah. "I've been supporting my adult son financially for 6 years. He's 30, still in school, constantly asking for money. Your podcast made me realize I'm not helping him. I'm enabling him. And I'm sacrificing my own retirement to do it. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm stopping the payments this month," I wrote back. "You're making the right choice. It'll be hard, but you deserve to live your own life too." That exchange reminded me why sharing my story mattered. Not for fame or recognition, but because so many people, especially women, were taught that sacrifice was virtue, that boundaries were selfish, that their own dreams mattered less than someone else's. In June, I got an invitation to speak at a local university's entrepreneurship program. They wanted me to talk to students about starting and growing a small business. Standing in front of those young, eager faces, I felt the weight of my own journey. 10 years ago, I'd been one of them, young, ambitious, unsure but determined. I talked about the practical stuff, business plans, funding, operations. But I also talked about the emotional stuff, the loneliness of being a young business owner, the doubt, the people who wouldn't take me seriously, the constant feeling of being behind. "Here's something they don't teach in business school," I said. "Success isn't linear. It's messy and complicated. Sometimes the people you love most will be your biggest obstacles. Not because they're bad people, but because they don't understand your vision, or they need something from you that conflicts with your goals. And you'll have to make hard choices about who you prioritize, them or yourself." A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "How do you know when it's okay to choose yourself?" "When choosing others is destroying you," I said simply. "When you look at your life and realize you're living someone else's dream while your own dies. When the only way forward is to let someone else find their own way." After the talk, several students approached me with questions. One young man, probably about 24, hung back until the others had left. "Ms. Martinez? I just wanted to say thank you. My family has been pressuring me to join the family construction business, but I want to start my own tech company. They keep saying I'm being selfish, that I should help the family first. Your talk made me realize I'm allowed to choose my own path. You are, I told him, and the people who really love you will eventually understand, even if it takes time. As I drove home that evening, I thought about young me, the 24-year-old who'd decided to open a cafe despite everyone's skepticism. I thought about 31-year-old me, the one who'd finally learned to say no. And current me, at 37, who'd built something real and sustainable and meaningful. The journey wasn't over. I still had dreams of expansion, of maybe franchising someday, of building an empire of cozy neighborhood cafes across the Pacific Northwest. But I was on the right path now, and I was doing it on my own terms. That night, I updated my business plan, adding notes about potential third locations, expansion timelines, hiring needs. I was building my future now, not funding someone else's. July brought a heat wave unusual for Portland, and with it, an unexpected visitor. I was at my original cafe location, training a new barista when Marcus walked in. I hadn't seen him in person in almost 2 years. He looked different, thinner, more worn. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by a simple polo shirt and jeans. His car, visible through the window, was a modest Honda Civic, not the BMW he'd once flaunted. "Hi," he said when he reached the counter. "Marcus." I kept my voice neutral. "What are you doing in Portland?" "Brittany and I are visiting her parents in Vancouver. I wanted to stop by, see your cafe." "If that's okay." I gestured to the space. "Here it is." He looked around, taking in the exposed brick walls, the art from local artists, the customers chatting at tables, the hum of the espresso machine. "It's really nice, Jen. I mean it." "Thank you. Can I get you something?" "Just a coffee, black." I made his drink while he settled at a corner table. After handing the training over to Kelly, I joined him. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Marcus spoke. "I'm not here to ask for money or make excuses. I just wanted you to see that I'm trying to do better. Be better. How's that going?" "Hard," he admitted. "My job is fine, but not glamorous. Brittany and I are working through a lot in therapy. Turns out building a marriage on lies isn't great. I'm paying off my student loans, but it'll take years. I drive a used car and live in a small apartment and have to actually budget. It's humbling." "That sounds like real life," I said. "Welcome to what most people deal with." He smiled ruefully. "Yeah, I'm learning that. The hard way." He paused. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, about how I treated you. My therapist calls it reckoning with the harm I caused. It's uncomfortable. I imagine it is. I was so caught up in this image I wanted to project, successful, sophisticated, from money. I thought that's what would make me happy, make people respect me. But it was all fake, and maintaining it made me into someone I'm ashamed of now." I listened, appreciating his honesty, but not quite ready to let my guard down. "The thing is," Marcus continued, "I don't think I ever actually thanked you. Not really. You paid for my entire law school education. You kept me afloat when I would have drowned. And I repaid you with disrespect and betrayal. So I'm saying it now. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Really deeply sorry." "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "I do. But Marcus, here's what I need you to understand. I forgive you, but that doesn't mean we go back to how things were. I can't be the person you lean on financially or emotionally. You need to build your own life, and I need to protect mine." "I know," he said. "I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking if maybe, someday, we could rebuild some kind of relationship. Not like before, something new. Something honest." I thought about it. The little brother I'd loved was still in there somewhere, underneath the mistakes and the lessons learned the hard way. Could we have a relationship? Maybe, but it would have to be different. "Maybe," I said. "But it'll take time. And it has to be reciprocal. You can't just show up when you need something." "I understand." He finished his coffee. "Your cafe really is beautiful, Jen. I'm proud of you for what that's worth." "It's worth something," I admitted. After he left, Kelly came over. "You okay, boss?" "Yeah, that was my brother. The one who—" "Yeah, that one. How do you feel?" I considered the question. Hopeful, maybe? But cautious. He's learning, but I need to protect what I've built, emotionally and financially. We'll see what happens. That night, I called Alexis and recounted the visit. Do you think he's really changed? She asked. I think he's trying to. Whether that sticks remains to be seen. But it's not my job to save him or fix him anymore. That's his work to do. Look at you, setting boundaries like a boss, I laughed. It only took me 35 years to figure it out. Better late than never. September marked 2 years since I'd cut off Marcus's funding. 2 years of rebuilding my life, my business, my sense of self. Both cafes were thriving. I'd promoted Diana to general manager, overseeing both locations, which freed me up to focus on growth strategy and new projects. Kelly had become a partner in the business, owning 10% equity, a way to reward her loyalty and ensure she stayed long-term. My savings account was healthy. My business loan was nearly paid off. I'd started contributing to a retirement account for the first time since opening the cafe. I'd even taken a vacation, a whole week in Hawaii, just me and a stack of books. Zero guilt about leaving the business because I had competent people running it. I was living the life I'd dreamed of at 24, before Marcus's needs had hijacked my trajectory. One afternoon, a familiar face walked into my original location, my dad. We hadn't seen each other in person since before the big blowout almost 2 years ago. He looked older, more gray, more stooped. He ordered a coffee and a scone, then asked if we could talk. We sat at my favorite corner table, the one with the view of the street. Your mother's been keeping me updated on you, he said. The second cafe, the articles, the podcast. You've done real good, Jen. Thanks, Dad. I owe you an apology. I should have supported you more, believed in you more. Should have seen what Marcus was doing and called him out on it. Instead, I just kept pushing you to help him, like your dreams didn't matter as much as his. It was the apology I'd needed from him, the acknowledgement that the favoritism had been real and harmful. Why? I asked. Why was it always about Marcus? Dad was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I think I saw myself in him. I never went to college, never became more than a tradesman. It was good, honest work, but I always wondered what I could have been if I'd had more opportunities. When Marcus got into law school, it felt like a second chance. Not for me exactly, but for our family. Like we were finally going to have someone important. And what I was doing wasn't important? No, that's not. He struggled for words. It was important. It is important. But I didn't see it that way then. I thought success looked like suits and offices and professional titles. I didn't understand that success could look like this. He gestured around the cafe. A business you built from nothing, customers who love you, employees who respect you. That's real success. Took me too long to see it. We talked for over an hour, about family, about expectations, about the damage that comes from comparing children, about regrets and hopes for the future. Before he left, Dad hugged me tight. I'm proud of you, Jenny. He used my childhood nickname, the one he'd stopped using somewhere along the way. I should have told you that more often. Should have shown it more. But I'm telling you now. I'm so damn proud of you. After he left, I sat alone in my cafe, watching the late afternoon light stream through the windows, and felt something settle into place. Not everything was fixed. Some wounds heal slowly, if at all. But we were trying. My parents were trying, I was trying, even Marcus was trying. Maybe that was enough. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around again, 2 years since that fateful email, I had clarity about what I wanted my life to look like. I accepted my parents' invitation to Eugene for Thanksgiving, but on my terms. I'd come for dinner but leave the same evening, maintaining my independence while honoring the relationship we were rebuilding. Marcus and Brittany would be there too, and this time I was okay with it. We'd exchanged a few emails and texts over the past months, nothing deep but cordial. We weren't close, might never be close again, but we were finding a way to coexist. The day was surprisingly pleasant. Mom had cooked all the traditional dishes. Dad carved the turkey with his usual ceremony. Marcus and Brittany talked about their life in Baltimore. Honestly, this time, without pretense. He was working hard, paying off debt, building a real life instead of a fake one. At one point, Brittany pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For cutting him off when you did. Marcus told me everything, about the money, the lies, all of it. If you hadn't stopped enabling him, he never would have hit bottom and actually changed. He'd still be pretending, still be lying, and we'd have built our marriage on that. So thank you." It was a perspective I hadn't considered, that my boundary setting had helped Marcus too, even if it hadn't felt like it at the time. "You're welcome," I said. "I hope you guys make it. We're working on it. One day at a time." During dinner, Dad raised his glass. "I want to make a toast to Jennifer, who built an empire from nothing, who taught us all about strength and boundaries and knowing your worth. And to family, not perfect but trying to do better. To second chances and new beginnings. To family," everyone echoed. I raised my glass and meant it. After dinner, as I prepared to leave, Mom walked me to my car. "I'm glad you came," she said. "Me too." "Same time next year?" "Yeah, same time next year." The drive back to Portland was peaceful. I had a great playlist, clear roads, and the satisfied feeling of having faced something I'd been afraid of and come out okay. 3 years after cutting off Marcus's funding, my life looked completely different. I now owned 4 cafes across Portland and was in talks to open a 5th in Seattle. I'd written a book about entrepreneurship and boundary setting that had become a surprise bestseller. I'd been featured on national morning shows, spoken at conferences, and mentored dozens of young business owners. But more than the external success, I'd built something internal: self-respect, healthy boundaries, and the understanding that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for them. Marcus and I had a relationship now, not like before, but something new. We talked every few months, usually about surface-level stuff, but occasionally about deeper things. He'd made progress in therapy, had been promoted at his firm, and was expecting his first child. I was genuinely happy for him. My parents visited regularly, rotating through my different cafe locations and marveling at what I'd built. We'd never fully repair the years of favoritism and misplaced priorities, but we'd found a new equilibrium that worked. One Saturday morning in October, I stood in my original cafe, the one I'd opened at 24 with nothing but determination and a dream, and watched the morning rush. Customers lined up for their usual orders. Baristas worked in practiced rhythm. Regulars chatted at their favorite tables. This was success. Not Instagram perfection or designer clothes or impressing strangers, but real success, a sustainable business, happy employees, a community gathering place, and the freedom to build the life I actually wanted. My phone buzzed with an email from a woman who'd read my book. "Thank you for telling your story. I've been supporting my sister financially for 5 years, and reading your experience gave me the courage to set boundaries. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but I know it was necessary. I'm choosing myself now just like you did. Thank you for showing me it's possible." I wrote back, "You're stronger than you know. The people who truly love you will understand eventually. And if they don't, you'll build a new family with people who value you. You've got this." As I hit send, I thought about young Jennifer, the 24-year-old who'd opened this cafe with big dreams and no idea how hard it would be. I thought about 31-year-old Jennifer, finally learning to say no. And current Jennifer, at 40, who'd built an empire on her own terms. If I could go back and tell that young woman anything, it would be this: your dreams matter. Your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice for others. The people who love you will support you, and the ones who don't aren't your people. Build your life for yourself, and don't apologize for it. That was the message I tried to share every time I spoke, every time I mentored, every time I told my story. Because for every person who understood it instinctively, there were dozens more who needed permission to prioritize themselves. And if my story, messy and painful and ultimately triumphant, could give them that permission, then every hard moment had been worth it. To everyone reading this, Your story matters. Your dreams matter. Your boundaries are valid. Don't let anyone, family, friends, society, convince you that sacrifice without reciprocity is love. It's not. Real love respects boundaries. Real family lifts each other up, not just one person. If you're in a situation where you're constantly giving and never receiving, where your dreams are always secondary to someone else's, where you feel guilty for wanting your own life, please know that it's okay to step back. It's okay to say no. It's okay to choose yourself. I spent years believing that being a good sister meant endless sacrifice. I was wrong. Being a good sister, being a good person, means having healthy boundaries, mutual respect, and reciprocal support. Anything less isn't family. It's exploitation. 3 years ago, I was exhausted, broke, and undervalued. Today, I'm thriving, financially stable, and surrounded by people who genuinely care about me. The difference? I learned to value myself enough to demand that others value me too. You can do the same. It won't be easy. People will call you selfish. They'll guilt you. They'll try every manipulation tactic to maintain the status quo. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. The freedom to build the life you actually want, not the one everyone else expects from you. Looking back on this 3-year journey, here's what I've learned. Financial boundaries are emotional boundaries. When I stopped sending Marcus money, I wasn't just protecting my bank account. I was protecting my sense of self-worth. Money is never just money in family relationships. It's power, control, value, and respect all wrapped up in dollars and cents. You can't save people from themselves. I thought I was helping Marcus achieve his dreams, but I was actually enabling him to avoid reality. The best thing I ever did for him, though it didn't feel like it at the time, was force him to face the consequences of his choices. Real family shows up in hard times. When I cut Marcus off and my parents turned against me, I discovered who my real family was. Alexis and her wife, my employees who supported me, my friend Rachel who kept me informed, and eventually, new people who came into my life because I finally had space for them. Success looks different than we're taught. Society tells us success means prestigious jobs, big salaries, impressive titles. But real success is autonomy, fulfillment, financial stability, and living according to your own values. My cafe empire might not impress everyone, but it's mine, and it supports the life I want to live. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I've forgiven Marcus for how he treated me. I've even forgiven my parents for their favoritism. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you, while still maintaining the boundaries that keep you safe. People change when they're ready, not when you want them to. Marcus didn't change because I cut him off, at least not immediately. He changed when his life collapsed and he finally had to face himself honestly. You can't force growth in others. You can only create circumstances where growth becomes necessary. Your no is a complete sentence. I used to justify, explain, apologize for every boundary I set. Now I understand that no by itself is sufficient. I don't owe anyone an explanation for prioritizing my own well-being. Small businesses matter. My cafe isn't just a cute shop. It's someone's favorite morning routine, someone's comfortable work spot, someone's first job, someone's community gathering place. Creating and running it is meaningful work, regardless of how others perceive it. The hardest choices often lead to the best outcomes. Cutting off Marcus was the hardest decision I've ever made. It was also the best one. Sometimes the path to peace runs straight through pain. Why? You teach people how to treat you. For years, I taught Marcus that I would always give, always sacrifice, always put his needs first. When I finally changed that lesson, it shook our entire family system, but it was necessary. Now, the people in my life know I have boundaries and they respect them, or they're not in my life.